This week, UFC 229 preview with Chuck Mindenhall. Yeah, that's about it.
You top three 4 times. You top 4 times.
So what? I'll chop your head off the
like
canvas,
chicken.
kid.
Welcome along to Obviously Fight Talk, episode 121. This is Noel O'Keefe, and I am joined, as always, by Robert Palin.
You alright, man? How's things? You excited?
Proper am. Because anyone who's looking at the show and looking at the start of this, they're like, it's dark out. So we've already done the show.
Yeah.
We're recording at the end here. So yeah, after talking about it, man, I'm
Even more excited.
Proper looking forward to it. Can't wait.
How much are you getting paid for that?
Proper.
Yeah.
€12. Proper.
Hey.
Here all week. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, so you won't miss any of our future content. Shows out every Tuesday, but Rob has live chats on a Thursday. And this week he's looking for someone to be a companion on it. Also check us out on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, like Spotify and stuff. We're there everywhere. Share, review, only if it's 5 stars. This week, Rob, we're mainly packed. Let's not mess around. It's UFC 229. It's a great fight card, great main event, and we have to have a great guest to cover it. So we got Chuck Mindenhall on, the man in the hat, and it's a pleasure chatting away with Chuck. We get a lot of his time. We sort of talk about the road to UFC 229, the implications of it, the build up, the after effects. We talk everything about it. We don't really do picks with Chuck. We just talk about the event and the lead up to it and everything surrounding it. Then myself and Rob, we're going to preview and predict and make our picks at UFC 229. No Brendan Dorman this week. Unfortunately, Brendan isn't well, so he couldn't come on. So, Brendan, get well soon, my man. It's only because he doesn't want to know that I'm going to pick Conor. But hopefully Brendan will be back next week. He probably won't if Conor wins. He'll still be ill.
Don't mind him, Brendan.
Don't mind him, Brendan. And then we're going to end the show where we normally start the show, and that's obviously Fight Talk Quick-Fire News. You could say it's the only non-UFC 229 segment on the show.
Yeah.
So
we kind of lied at the start for saying that's it. We do talk a little bit about RIZIN and Bellator and all that.
So if you're not interested in UFC 229 this week, this is not the show for you.
Yeah. Skip like an hour in.
Yeah, you do not want to listen to this whatsoever. You're actually going to find it hellish. But if you are looking forward to UFC 229, this is your place to be. Ireland's #1 podcast. Obviously Fight Talk. Let's get the man in the hat on.
Let's get him.
Chuck Mindenhall, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so moving on with obviously Fight Talk, we'd like to welcome back the man in the hat, Chuck Mindenhall, making, it must be his 4th or 5th appearance in obviously Fight Talk. So Chuck, thanks a million again for coming on to obviously Fight Talk.
Thanks for having me, fellas. This is a big week.
It's a big week.
It is a big week, and that's where we want to start, obviously. Is it the biggest week in UFC history?
Man, I tell you what, it's kind of arrived in a very strangely quiet way. I don't know, that's the way it seems to me, but it's only Monday, and a lot of times, on the Monday is when you start to feel it. I feel like that's when it becomes a real thing. It's happening on the coming weekend and everything like that. I started to feel it a little bit today, man. You start to do your preview writing and all that stuff, and as I was sitting down to do that, some hair starts going up on your arm a little bit, and you start thinking about it, and you're like, more than anything, man, it feels like I think we've learned to just take it all in stride and to knock on wood and just kind of keep our fingers crossed that everything happens as it should. And I feel like I'm in that state of trepidation with it. I want to believe I'm going to see those two guys walk out, but you know how it is in this game, man. So I'm excited, but you keep it a little bit held back.
Do you take anything from the stream? Like the press conference last week, it done insane numbers, didn't it? It done like 500,000 or something. It was like something crazy. Like, do you take anything from that in terms of how you expect this to sell?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I wasn't sure how that would go. I was actually in the theater, and it was very surreal, as I'm sure you guys have heard, just kind of looking out that vast cathedral of emptiness, and Conor kind of had to bring his A game just to kind of bring the energy level up in that room, and he was certainly able to do it. It gave you a very false sense, though, without the Irish, and there's the pandemonium in the backdrop. It gave you a false sense that maybe it was a quiet event, like it was not really registering on that level. But I'm in the theater itself, and you start to see those numbers afterward, and you realize that it's every bit as big as you kind of thought it would be, if not more. I was a little bit surprised that it hit 500,000 in the stream, and the numbers that MMA Fighting were doing and everything like that. I thought it was let's put it this way. I never longer felt like it was hyperbole when you hear Dana White saying like that this thing could, top out at, 2 point whatever million, 2.5, I think he said. That seemed reasonable at that moment. And I still feel like we're just now getting into how big it's going to feel by the time it gets here.
Were you surprised from me watching it? I was away when I was watching it, but as I was watching it, there was no... what's the best way of phrasing this? Conor McGregor, when he seems to talk to UFC, he does his American-Irish accent so that the Americans can understand him.
Oh, yeah?
That was gone in that press conference.
Yeah,
he was 100% Crumlin Dublin during that. Was that noticeable when you were there, or did he just sound the same to you?
That's really interesting, man. I had not really considered that, but it's kind of thinking back on it a little bit. I know what you mean. He certainly did strike me as a very Irish version of himself. That's just really weird, though, because I've never considered that he has, tried to make his voice a little bit more easy, easier to understand for American audience. I do know there were certain times like when he broke, there's a couple times where he was talking where I personally couldn't understand what he said. And from that perspective, yes, I see what you're saying, man. But 2 years away, right? Like, I know he fought Mayweather and he got a taste of an epic stage and what all that means. But 2 years away, hey, man, maybe his roots are fully fully back right now. You know what I mean? So, but that's a really interesting observation.
Because no, I just sort of put it down to he was so amped that it wasn't as much as some of it was theater, like the little hidden nagging in the inside pocket, like the likes of that. But I thought it was less theater and more real. Like he was all, just as well there wasn't a bus or a dolly there. He was in that sort of mentality where he was ready to attack and the mask was down, if you like.
Yeah, it was weird. I know Dana White used the word dark. I would say that that's the best descriptor I've heard of it because it just had like a very personal flair. Like the tension in the room got very thick, and I felt like as each time he's kind of just jumping on on every little thing that he thinks he can get into Khabib's head with, you could see a little bit of agitation, or Khabib has to actively become deaf to that. Like you could see him putting through the process of like, it doesn't matter. And the way Conor just kept, just going right at him, man. I mean, personal stuff, a little bit, I wouldn't say mean-spirited, but you know what I mean. Yeah. I think he's definitely digging into his arsenal more. It's more personal. The bad blood is real. And I thought that Conor was, he was selling that bad blood, man. I really believe he was doing that. And he certainly didn't sugarcoat it for anybody. And, it's kicked up many, many little fires, you know what I mean? Like in this whole process. So, it was interesting, man. I didn't think anything was particularly below the belt, but it certainly had a dark edge to it. I came away from it thinking like, wow, so that wasn't the Conor McGregor I was expecting. I actually thought maybe we'd get a little bit more of a subdued professional look, a guy who's been out for a while, who's made a lot of money. I thought we might see him in a little bit more subdued form, especially coming off that Dolly incident and everything else. I thought we might actually see him dial it back a bit, but we got just the opposite. I mean, he's kicking his feet up just like normal. He had his proper 12. He's shouting out to all the to his company and all that, man. I just thought that he was covering any lack of energy that was coming from the room itself. He was making up for it, man, and it was its own spectacle.
On the other side of it, then what did you think of Khabib's reaction? Because he seemed quite cool. I mean,
he's so stoical at all times. I was very interested in his reaction. I was like, the one thing you want to see is he getting under Khabib's skin, or do we see any kind of any moment? You know how these things work. You start to get a gut feeling when there's a psychological edge in play. I didn't really pick up on much of that, man. I felt like he was able to kind of just, ingest it. I think I mentioned it like it's like in the cartoons, swallowing the bomb and just belch out the smoke. It was like that. Whatever he was throwing at him, he was just like, whatever. Take it and move on. But I will say at the end, there were a couple of moments where I could see him looking over more, and I could see his raising his voice. He's trying to finally talk over Conor, which was not the case for the first 30 minutes of that press conference. So you know how it is. you might start seeing just a little bit where he's coming unhinged, just a tiny bit. But I think he's ultimately the kind of guy who he roots himself in the knowledge that come Saturday night, or come, in a couple of weeks from that point, he was going to be able to lock the door and be able to inflict bodily harm on him. And I think that literally his mind and this discipline of mind keeps himself there. I think that that's where he's rooted in that idea.
Sticking on press conferences, but not the one that happened, the one that's coming up. Do you expect a similar performance from McGregor and a similar performance from Khabib on Thursday night?
It'll be interesting, man, because we saw during McGregor's, that 4-stop world tour with Mayweather, he had a really raucous and really almost in poor taste showing in Brooklyn. If you guys recall the whole, pimp garb and everything, and he came out. And then by the time he gets to London, it's back to business. He still was loud and boisterous and audacious and all that, but he had dialed it back. It'd be interesting to see, because he certainly listens to critics. He doesn't necessarily dance to whatever the critics are telling him, but I think he listens. He's well read. He understands his critics. He understands the general zeitgeist. He knows what people are talking about at all times. It'd be interesting to see if he dials it back or if he comes on stronger. He's just such a master manipulator when it comes down to it, man. Like he can go into any situation and turn something into a visceral event. Like there's something that becomes then personal, not just between the two guys, but it becomes personal between nations. It becomes personal between fans. And I think that that's just however he thinks he can achieve that, the better. But I feel like I don't have huge expectations that it's going to be just the same. I at this point, man, he could come in as anything for this and sell this fight, man. I feel like I'm just kind of keeping it there. You know what I mean? You don't want to have expectations on it. I just want to go in there and see what he comes up with. It becomes part of the fun, honestly, man, to see what form he shows up in.
This is open to the public, isn't it? The one on Thursday?
Yeah. Yes, it is. So this one obviously is going to have the thing that he was craving from the last one. And I think, obviously, man, 2 years out, you guys know the Irish come to Las Vegas, they take over that city, man, and it's actually a lot of fun, even for me, because if they recognize me, I become part of their hoopla. It's just the energy there is like it's really like nothing I've experienced in the fight game. So I think 2 years away, and just given the matchup and the bad blood and all that, I think it's going to be a raucous scene, man. That's the kind of thing that I personally love, is when you can get excited about a fight, you know what I mean, at that stage, and to see all the people and all the belief and all the gambling and everything that's going on in between, it just makes for a mad scene, man, and that's what I'm expecting. One
thing you just showed there a minute ago was your bottle of Proper 12 whiskey, and one of the things in this fight that I think is really interesting is like the politics around it. How big is that for Conor, that he has his whiskey on the canvas going into this? This is like unprecedented for anybody in MMA ever, in the UFC at least.
Everything about him is always unprecedented. It's like he's the one dude who keeps moving what's precedent and what's unprecedented. It was a little surprising, but then I thought about it and I was like, seeing him last time at Madison Square Garden in the wee hours of that night after he'd picked up his second title, he was talking about part ownership. He was talking about the far-fetched nature of the next time we might see him in the octagon. And I thought that what form would this take? What would it be? Would the UFC actually make him a part owner? Well, how would this look? Well, here we are, and obviously he just picked up 9 digits in that boxing match. He comes back. He's got a couple of business enterprises that we knew were coming, and now one of them is sponsoring his own event in the UFC. To me, it almost feels like this was part of the new deal, the compromise. I feel like this was, however you want to look at it, was just something that they worked out to kind of put him, like you said, unprecedented, to kind of give him the next step up from where he was before, to give him that kind of a little bit of the power, that's going on with this whole thing. So it didn't surprise me, and everything he's done. I mean, even, I don't know how the Proper 12 is selling in Ireland. I heard it was flying off the shelves. And here it's just very difficult to find. But I know one thing. I posted a picture of this on Twitter, and I got a deluge of people just asking me, how is it? Where can I get it? Where can I get it? Who puts out a whiskey that gets that kind of response, man? I feel like it's just the dude, whatever he touches at this point, man, it just turns to gold. So I will say that this doesn't taste like gold. This is it's pretty good. It's comparable. It really is comparable to like Jameson, a little bit sweeter, but not bad.
Air supermarket chain I think they're the main supplier of it, Tesco's, are they?
I think so, yeah.
They literally have a sign up that says 2 bottles per customer.
Yeah.
They will not sell more. It's literally off the shelves.
Yeah.
So,
that's great. And you said they're going for €40, right? Like, so that's each bottle.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty crazy, man. I mean, he's lining his pockets yet
but,
again.
But again, what a lot of people may not know is he also has set up on it that a percentage of it goes to first responders.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Absolutely, man.
So that it's not just Irish first responders. It's wherever you're buying the bottle, it goes to that place, and like that's something that gets overlooked, I think, a little bit in regards to that. But it's something you said about something that no other fighter can do. I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube channel MMA On Point. The guys brought out a video there last week about the top 10 things that only Conor McGregor could do and get away with. And it's literally a list from everything from not turning up to a press conference to constantly being late to, jumping a cage. And this, I think, is they need to add this to the list. He's bringing out his own whiskey that's going to be on the canvas in his own main event fight. Yeah. It's insane to think about what he does. But my question is this in some way, it's incredible, obviously, for Brand McGregor, but for other fighters, what's that mean? Like Khabib coming in here to fight this guy, and his logo is embezzled on the canvas he's fighting. So what impact does this have for the other fighters on the roster?
I mean, it's always been ever since he's been kind of making up his own rules and accomplishing these things, setting the bar higher, and then leaping right over that and setting the next bar higher. I feel like he's been a source of both awe and resentment within UFC fighters. I mean, I think that a lot of people want themselves to have the exact same opportunities, but they just are not Conor McGregor. I mean, it's as simple as that. Like, there's very few people, and honestly, it really does come down to that. That it factor that we talk about. Conor McGregor is the exhibit of it, right? Like, he's the guy who calls his shots, that wins the fights, who transcends. Like, every time expectations rise, it's very difficult. Imagine acquiring the kind of wealth and fame he has, but yet still exceeding expectations at each venture. I mean, everything he does, he still exceeds it. I feel like that burden alone to try to meet the thing that you've set so high would eliminate 98% of the UFC's roster. So for guys that do it, it's one thing to talk the talk, but to walk the walk and to just keep doing this stuff and to meet each thing head on and really just come across. I mean, he's had missteps, obviously, but how compelling he is and who he is keeps erasing those things. You keep wanting to give him the benefit of the doubt. You want to see where this thing goes. He's perfect on so many levels of what we consider entertainment and what we consider, honestly, if we're being real, the limits of a human being. Like, what can one human being accomplish? That's really his thing. I mean, at this point, it's like, how high can he go? He just did the Mayweather thing. I thought that was about as high as he can go. Now he's doing this stuff. I don't know how high this will go, like if he breaks the UFC's record for pay-per-views and all that, but it really does start to fall into a different kind of entertainment. It becomes like you're watching a person to see how much one man's spirit can rise into these situations. And that's the difference. It's like all these other guys, you can go out and start your own whiskey thing. You can do whatever you want, but to be able to get that placement, there's a whole backstory to that. And obviously we've watched this thing play out, man, since his going back to, his early fights and all that stuff. So it's like just to watch him incrementally achieve each thing. It's never been done. Everything you guys mentioned that word unprecedented, that's kind of how he's been the whole way. Each thing is unprecedented, and we're just at that next step. And there's just not there. Fighters can get mad about it, or they can try to embrace it. They can figure out their own niche in the way that they think fits that. They can pick up his cues, but really, there's nobody who's going to be able to do. He's also first, to do a lot of this stuff. Yeah. So for a second person to come in and try to do some of that stuff, it's not going to work. So he's all of those things, man. He checks all those boxes. And that's the kind of, when you're that kind of pioneer, I think you do kind of inspire both resentment and envy and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
That's the thing as well. You mentioned it. It seems like every time he comes back, it's something unprecedented. And in terms of like him coming back this time, I think you're right. I think that whole advertisement thing is probably what got him back. It's like he obviously probably got a bigger paycheck and whatever, but it's that getting that on the canvas. But like, what is next? He's going to be looking for something even bigger. So how did the UFC get him back? And like, what's he going to request? He's going to request ownership again, probably. So what did he do to get him back next time? How can he go bigger than what they're doing this time?
part of the intrigue to this thing is just trying to imagine a world where he goes in there and just smokes Khabib Nurmagomedov, because where does that leave things? I don't know. I mean, obviously we know some of the potential fights he could have, but it's like with everything with him, it's not as simple as just matchmaking. It's not a simple thing anymore. It's like a very complex. How big will this guy get? And I mean, honestly, just how compelling he's been, depending on if he goes in there and does that, it's almost like I honestly can't really fathom to what extent he will. What his next hand will be. And it really comes down to the one thing he kind of mentioned in that press conference was that he was back not so much for money, but because he loves the sport and things like that. This is something we haven't seen. That was a little new wrinkle, is just kind of getting into his passion again, or into that side of things again, rather than just the kind of materialistic aspect of it. You know what I mean? So I think that maybe you start to go into that. Maybe it starts to go back a little bit, where it starts to say, like, I've accomplished these things. Now I'm just going, it's going to be about fighting for his own passion and legacy and things like that. That's a possibility, but he is 100% a businessman. So how he handles himself and what he's able to accomplish with a victory, stay tuned. I mean, to me, that's an exciting prospect, because I don't know if we'll ever get this again in the UFC, and we certainly have never had it. So it's like everything he does on that level becomes massively intriguing to me.
It's interesting that you said that as well, because I'm not sure if you've seen, he done an interview with the Mac Life, so his own, like it's basically state-run TV from McGregor. Right. But he done an interview, and that was a lot of what he was saying in that interview was basically what you said. It's not about the money, it's about kind of legacy, it's about the love of the sport. And he brought up new divisions, he brought up 165, he brought up Tyron Woodley again, he brought up GSP. Yeah. So do you think that maybe that's what as you said, that's probably what he's going to do? He's looking more so maybe a 165 division or a 170 rather than, the stake in the company he was going after. Yeah.
Yes. I do think that. Yeah. I think that he will he'll look for the next hurdle, because the dangling carrot method he used was basically whatever he would accomplish, he would set something higher and more far-fetched to accomplish, and he would do that. This one, obviously, his comeback, it has its goals and its apexes. If he's able to break that pay-per-view record, he will have done it again. He will have done something new and unprecedented and all that stuff. You're not sure to what extent that could be, but if he does if there is a 165-pound division, I almost guarantee you he'll be there right away for that. If it's 170 pounds, you could see that too, just given that that's the next challenge. I mean, that would be, right there. A GSP fight, I mean, again, I think that a lot of people, it's hard when you talk about a fight like that, hypothetically, you can kind of get excited about it, but there's just so many what ifs involved in that. But if they actually signed on to fight, that becomes a massively compelling fight. I just think he has to have it mentally. I think he has to have something. He has to have a higher hurdle, just because he feasts on doubt, man. I think he loves it when people kind of doubt that he can do something, and he wants to prove people wrong. And so, yes, I think that part of it, just improving on his legacy and where he's going to leave things when he's all done, it'll be some step towards that, I think.
What I find intriguing about this is, and this is how magnetic and his magnetism is, Conor McGregor, he's fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, and we have barely touched on Khabib so far during this. So he's
talk about that when I talk to the Dagestan
guys. but that's what I mean. Like, here we are, we've chatting away about Conor, but his toughest opponents task, ahead of him on Saturday night. If you don't want to count Mayweather. Who cares about boxing sparring? But when you look at the challenge that's in front of him, is this half the fight for Khabib as well though? Because he's fighting the powerhouse, not just the man standing across the cage, but he's fighting against, in some way, a franchise in Conor McGregor. Is that the hard part and the big challenge? And what does Khabib essentially have to do to beat this?
Well, I think the first thing is just to simplify what you just said, to simplify it and say, it's just me against a man. When he goes in there and he fights Conor McGregor, to basically strip away any of that mysticism or any of that the big scrutiny and everything that goes with it. I think you have to look past that, and he has to kind of center himself. I think I really do believe he's honed in that way with himself. We've seen him in moments, I don't think the moment is going to be very big, but I don't think it's too big for Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's part of what makes this a compelling fight. We saw guys, honestly, they would never admit it, but I mean, you watched guys like Dustin Poirier, in his fight. I felt like he was affected, by the time they stepped in there. Obviously, guys like Chad Mendes, who was kind of thrown into the situation. You just think that at some point there was a lot going on that they had to try to manage. I don't think that he's going to. It'll be. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the weight cut, how everything goes. Because there's going to be a lot of press there, man, and I think it's going to feel very big, and it's going to feel like it's the most historic thing for Khabib Nurmagomedov has ever done. So it's like, does he bring any of that in there? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think his whole quest would be to simplify it and say, like, my goal, and even strip it back even further, is just a double leg or whatever it's going to be, and try to take him down and dictate his will over Conor McGregor. I think that you have to just be as simple as that with it.
If Khabib does win this, and there's a lot of people thinking that he will smoke him pretty early, if that does happen, where does that leave Khabib in terms of his popularity? Because we know it doesn't really work like that. You don't just beat the guy and take his popularity. So where do you think that actually leaves Khabib? Is he going to be a huge star if he does smoke Conor McGregor?
That's a really good question, man. But I could see the reverse, honestly. I could see him, because you saw guys like Chris Weidman, obviously, with Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
And even Holly Holm to an extent with Ronda Rousey. Of course, there was a lot more hatred towards Ronda Rousey, I think, heading into that fight than there was for some of these other guys, the icons and stuff like that. Conor McGregor is an icon. He's a very polarizing icon. I think that a lot of people who are on the outside looking in, they look at Conor McGregor as the guy. They see him as the Mike Tyson. He's the guy that they probably feel is invincible. If they don't follow the sport, they probably just assume that he's tearing everybody up and that there's nobody really on his level. For this guy to come in and beat him, if Khabib goes in there and beats him, obviously that's going to be news for a big portion of the world. Like, I think that's going to be the type of thing where they see it and they, they're disbelieving, and it's almost like some franchise has come to die, or some, it's left off on some sour note. That's not going to do Khabib Nurmagomedov any favors, man. I honestly believe you could see a situation where if he wins, he turns into almost a villain kind of character in this whole situation, where people will hold it against him, honestly, for kind of shattering their own delusion on how they had Conor McGregor pegged. So I could see that happen. I think he will become a bigger star. I'm not sure he'll become. It's not like the mojo switches like a baton, though. It's not like all of a sudden he's going to be opening up his own whiskey line, and you know what I mean. He's going to be dictating and asking for ownership of the UFC. It won't work like that, but he may end up I think he'll come out of it bigger, especially with a win, but it may be bigger in a sense that now people want to see him lose, and I don't think that he's in that position just yet.
Now that you say that, actually, just thinking, that's something that I never really thought of, that, outside the bubble that we're kind of in, people don't really know Khabib. They don't know how talented he is. Do you think that, that makes this a really, really, I suppose, tough fight for McGregor in terms of like what he can gain from it versus what he can lose? Because like usually when you have a champion or a challenger coming in to fight the champion, it's the challenger that wins, the challenger that gains everything. And now it almost feels like he's not, when you put it that way, that he has a lot to lose in this.
This really depends, because this is where the UFC as a promotional enterprise needs to build up Khabib Nurmagomedov this week. They need to sell him as a, this marauder who's coming in to, who should win, who's never lost a round. They need to sell those aspects to the point where it's ingrained in that larger collective. I think that when the outside starts to really believe that there's doubt on this fight, that Khabib should win the fight or is a legitimate favorite to win the fight, then it translates. If they don't do that job and Conor McGregor somehow wins this fight, I see what you're saying. It would almost feel a little bit like a travesty to a small degree, because you'd be like, people wouldn't realize just what a feat he just did. I think that's certainly a part of it. I love fights like this because there are so many aspects like that. Perception becomes a very profound thing. You want everybody to meet on the same page perception-wise in terms of the magnitude of something like that. But I do believe it's the UFC's job to sell that magnitude for Khabib Nurmagomedov so that everybody knows if Conor gets through him, there's an astonishment to that. There's a continued astonishment to his feat. And I think that that's one of the subtexts for this week. Can they really build that up? Because right now, heading into fight week, I don't feel like Khabib has that. I don't feel like people on the outside are really worried about him as a challenger. I think they're still looking at McGregor as the tyrant because they know who he is.
I think they need to get Khabib on the mic a lot more, though, because he's actually quite, from the years of watching him on MMA Hour and stuff like that, he's great. He's great on the mic. And I, for one, would 100% buy #1 bullshit vodka. I would 100% buy it, so I'm all in. But almost going back to that, do you think then, in the same way, we're talking about if Conor wins, GSP, Woodley, 165, all these type of things. Yeah. Rob done a live chat during the week where you made your...
Oh, I had the bracket.
He made a bracket almost like an old school tournament, and he got the rankings from the different weight classes for 165 and set up a tournament bracket. And you said the majority of people picked Khabib to win it. So why aren't them opportunities available? Because I know, again, as you say, Rob, us in a bubble, we appreciate what Khabib is and just how good he is. But surely, as you said, with promoting the UFC, if they've done it right, are them opportunities not there for Khabib to go on and fight GSP, to fight Tyron Woodley? Like, surely they should be there.
Well, they will be. I think they will be, especially because at that point I think he ascends to a level even within this hardcore sect that we're talking about. Like, everybody knows who's watched him fight knows how good he is. Yeah. They know how dominant he is. It's I think he'll be able to achieve somewhat of that status, with the victory here. But I think in part it's because he's been in certain fights where he's fell out of. He's beat a couple guys who didn't really have the sexiest names, at weird times of cards and things like that. He hasn't had that definitive moment. I know we've seen him just pulverize a guy like Edson Barboza or something like that, and we think from the guys who watch this fight, you're like, nobody does that to Edson Barboza. That's insane. That's astonishment, but it's not an astonishment that goes out. It doesn't have an antenna. It doesn't go all over the world. I think it's one of those types of things where this would have to be his moment. And if you can imagine, his style of winning is interesting because some people, ground and pound is not always the sexiest thing for people to watch. His brand of ground and pound is very alluring. I don't know too many people. I know there are some people who don't like it, but the way he does it, that he just saps the will out of somebody and and has a conversation with the cage side people around him and stuff like that is interesting. And if he's able to really do that in this situation, like I said, there would be a massive amount of hate that would come off of this because of all the reasons we stated. But I also do believe, though, it puts him in that bracket you're talking about. Like, I think because everybody will have seen it, all of a sudden a GSP, a guy who, like, if you're saying Khabib and GSP might fight, you have two guys who fight similarly in terms of how they sap the will in a fight colliding, and one guy being bigger and all that. It becomes massively sellable and intriguing for a larger audience. So there's so much like that at stake, man. It is I find it all fascinating. I think in real time, that's one of the great things about a fight like this is that every little action carries such an import to history. It's like every little action in there is going to dictate kind of how things play out on so many levels. So it'd be interesting to see. Honestly, man, it'd be very interesting to see because it's impossible to really gauge what the psyche will be coming out of it. You know what I mean?
You'll probably be able to answer this question a bit better after Thursday and probably after Friday. But there was a lot of discussion around the media going into this and how they didn't really start promoting it until very recently. And a lot of people thought it was the wrong decision by the UFC. But now in hindsight, or even looking now from the press conference and then what we have coming forward, do you feel it was a good decision that the UFC didn't promote this weeks out? And again, it's probably hard to tell now because we still have a lot to come. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of hard to tell until we see, because if for some reason it gets here and it feels anticlimactic, that's going to feel like a failure on the UFC's part. If it feels anticlimactic on Saturday night, something went really, really wrong, and we'd have to go back and actually look at the whole thing and figure out where. But I honestly didn't mind it because one of the things I don't like is if you're a pay-per-view business, those are your big shows. Like, for instance, that show they just had in Dallas. It wasn't the greatest show, but you wouldn't want to stomp all over it by having a big press conference about this fight over it. You're kind of cutting off your foot to whatever on the other side. It's like you're doing detriment to yourself. I think that the UFC, it doesn't matter so much. I think that's where I'm at right now. I don't think it matters so much that they kind of waited until it got a little closer to kind of get rolling with it. To me, in the aftermath of that first press conference, it started to become very real very quickly. It started to get legs. I'm a little surprised. I mean, obviously we've seen them do like world tours, and we've seen the Aldo buildup where they're going, into different countries and they're doing all these things. I was a little surprised initially that they weren't going to do a little more, like maybe at least a couple press conferences to kind of generate that. But given the Mayweather situation, there's sometimes a little bit, and this is why it's good he's come back after 2 years. There's a little bit of overkill going on with Conor McGregor, and I think that partially there might be like a little bit of a UFC edge to that, saying like, hey, we don't want that either. You don't want to the point where you're inundated with what Conor does, and you get like a little bit immune to hearing his talk and all that stuff. So to me, I feel like we're getting just the right amount. I mean, it sells itself on some level, and I think he'll be. No expectations, like I said, but I think come Thursday when they get together at that press conference, man, all this stuff we're talking about will probably seem frivolous because I think he'll know how to sell it. The thing is going to feel big, I believe, as of that moment.
It's a special night, I think, ahead.
Yes.
We haven't even touched on the rest of the card. We won't take up any more of your time because I honestly do think
there's a rest of the card.
Yeah,
apparently, yeah.
There's other fights, but I do. Sometimes when you look at a fight on paper, it doesn't live up to its expectation. I don't think that's going to be the case on Saturday night. The old saying of styles make fights, and I think special fighters make fights, and I think we've got two of the best in the business stepping in on Saturday night. I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to read all about it after the fact. You're there, you're attending, enjoy the fights, and thanks again for coming on and giving so much time again, Chuck. We really appreciate your time with us here and obviously Fight Talk, but enjoy the fights, my man, and enjoy your proper 12.
Cheers, fellas. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
care.
man.
Take care.
All the best.
So, yeah, great. Always a pleasure talking with Chuck. I love how his mind thinks. He's a better version of me with analogies. Even in his writing, it's like, damn, why didn't I think that?
Brilliant. Yeah, no, big fan of Chuck. My favourite MMA writer, I'll say that. Not just because he was on. Yeah. Yeah. My favourite.
It's not like the articles I put out.
I said my favourite. I didn't say I didn't like yours.
Oh.
You're doing that thing where like, you're not picking Conor McGregor to win. You obviously hate Conor McGregor.
Yeah, you hate Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
Let's go on to that and let's go and pick our picks and let's talk about the big fights again.
That wasn't a spoiler. That wasn't a spoiler. I might pick Conor McGregor. Let's see.
I tell you, you'll have no tricolour on your top if you don't. But yeah, let's move it on and get to me and Rob's picks and let's talk the fights. We're going to cover the main card.
Can I just do my little spell so I can I'll do my spell at the end so I can make it bright outside, just because, it'd be better if we have it bright while we're on this preview.
Brightness. Let's get to it, Rob. UFC 229, Khabib versus McGregor goes down this Saturday night in Las Vegas, Nevada, the United States of America. Brendan Dorman, unfortunately, isn't with us, as we said at the top of the show, to break this down. But me and Rob, we're going to go this a little different. Rather than being accused of being biased because we're Irish, we're going to look at how each fighter can win this fight, Rob.
Okay.
So let's start first, I suppose, with the champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov.
Nurmagomedov.
How did I butcher Khabib's name? That was terrible. How does Khabib win this fight?
I thought Dan Hardy done a really, really good breakdown of this. Have you watched this Inside the Octagon?
Very busy man.
Haven't watched it. Sorry. I'll do a synopsis of it.
I will. This will be my watching on bus rides home all week. Then I'll start to watch all that stuff.
I thought he done a really good job of looking at both sides and looking where each guy could win. And you do have to think that for Khabib to win, he needs takedowns. You have to think that. I don't think it's
takedowns win fights.
Yeah, I don't think it's a case where like it's striker versus grappler only. I don't really see that. Like, I think it's a superior grappler versus a superior striker. But I still do think that Khabib needs takedowns to win the fight. Conor is traditionally pretty good at not being taken down in most fights. The Chad Mendes fight, he was taken down. And he has been taken down in a few other fights.
Tends to pop straight back.
But he does tend to pop straight up. But I think it's going to be pressure, pace, takedowns for Khabib to win the fight. If you look at, say, the Nate Diaz fight, even the second Nate Diaz fight, but in particular the first one, that Conor had. I thought he'd done some really good stuff in the second one, and I think that Nate is a difficult fight for Conor, stylistically anyway. And not that Nate and Khabib have a similar style, but they do excel in certain situations, in certain areas. I think their pressure is similar, as in Nate won't come forward and look for takedowns like that, but he's always coming forward at you. And I think Conor had a problem with that. And I think as well, Khabib seems like he has a great chin. He's been hit a few times. We haven't really seen him get hit clean. Like if you watch the Michael Johnson one, this has always been brought up. Even Dan Hardy brought it up, which I was a bit surprised. But like if you actually slow that down, that footage down, them shots barely actually hit Khabib. Most of them hit him on like the shoulders and the arms. I think there was like one shot that hit him a little bit and it didn't do anything, you know. It barely even wobbled him. He was a bit off balance, that's it. But I think that if you have a situation where Conor needs to take a rest, because it seems like Conor in the mid rounds, and he even admitted it himself, that he kind of slows down a little bit. And if you have Khabib on top of you during that time, I think that's going to be a huge problem for Conor. Like, huge problem for Conor.
So, bell goes, right? All the dancing and all is done. Bell goes, fight starts. What do you see here? Do you see Khabib rushing in to close the distance to get a takedown? What way? Just because Khabib isn't your, like, he doesn't shoot from way out. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't do a big power double straight off and change levels and get in. He tends to get close and gets takedowns that way. Yeah. Is that what you see again in this one?
I don't know, actually, because like coming in, you could have two things. Like, you can see two things. You can't really see Khabib striking on the outside. But also, if you look at the way Conor fights, he loves when guys come straight at him. So, like, his coach, Javier Mendez, will be saying, okay, we don't want to do a Jose Aldo and just run in and try to take him down straight away. That's, you could get countered that way. So I don't know if you're going to have Khabib just running straight at him, even though that's what Khabib does. Like,
do you think Khabib will have been looking at you brought up already, Chad Mendes fight? Do you think he's going to look at the Chad Mendes and go, how did he get Conor down? What did he do? How did he initiate the takedown?
Probably, although that was a long time ago. And that Conor's game plan, and that was really, really weird, wasn't it? Conor was coming forward.
Very short notice.
It was very short notice. He had an injury, and I know Mendes didn't have a full camp either, so he slowed down as well. But like, it was almost like Conor knew he had an injury. He had to get him out really quickly because he came forward almost like Khabib, but like not in the same way. Like, he came forward striking, but like his hands were down. He was just trying to land shots, trying to put everything, almost like the Diaz fight, the first Diaz fight as well. Whereas he came forward and was just trying to take out Nate Diaz really, really early. And you could see Conor was gassing. If he didn't finish that fight in the second round, I think, not that Mendes would have won because he was gassed as well, but I think it would have been a very different looking fight.
One thing that I always like about watching Khabib fight is he's the type of fighter that he changes takedowns.
Yes.
He doesn't just go for the takedown, lose, and then he'll go for it when he's changed to a single. He'll lose it. He resets. He sort of does this little jog, and he comes back in, and he doesn't seem to get discouraged by not getting the takedown first time. That doesn't affect him. But in this one, if he tries to get Conor, how important is it for Conor McGregor to stop that first takedown? And if he stops it, what's Khabib's mindset?
Khabib's not getting discouraged, I don't think. Because he misses a lot of takedowns. If you actually look at his takedown rate, I don't know what it actually is. I don't think it's great, is it?
UFC have me here. He only has a 45% success. So he's gone for 109 takedowns and has got 49 of them. And bear in mind, there was 21 of them takedowns in one fight.
Yeah, that's interesting. What fight was that?
That was against, you're absolutely throwing me now.
Was that Trujillo?
No, it was Harsher. Was it Harsher?
Harsher, Jesus Christ.
21 times he took him down. Was that fight?
But yeah, I don't think it's not going to discourage Khabib if he doesn't get a takedown early straight away. But it's just weird because, like, I clearly think this, and I said it to Brendan. Brendan actually agreed with me on this as well. Is that I don't think Khabib has fought somebody with the hands of McGregor. Well, to be fair, nobody really in MMA has hands like McGregor. So, like, if you look at the way he knocks out...
What do you mean by have hands like McGregor? You mean the dead touch or just striking?
Just the accuracy and, I suppose, the power as well, the timing. Because, like, that Jose Aldo one, like, you can look at it in hindsight now, but nobody was picking Conor McGregor to knock out Jose Aldo going backwards, you know? Yeah. And that was kind of... That fight as well was a bit weird because Jose Aldo doesn't really do that. He doesn't really jump forward with a strike. I think that was a little bit of McGregor being in his head. And I don't really expect Khabib to do that, but Khabib does do that. You know, that's the weird one. Like, you kind of say, you know, Khabib kind of runs forward, hands down sometimes. Although when he's striking, usually his hands are up high, but when he's looking for takedowns, his hands do come down. Obviously, he's trying to get takedowns, and that's where you see McGregor trying to land a shot. But, you know, logically, you think he's not going to do that, but that's the way he fights. So is he going to change that?
couple of points. Number one, do you think a lot of people have fallen under the thing? Remember Joe Rogan's like, he looks amateurish, his striking and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think people have got that? And here's a weird stat. I don't think a lot of people know this. 70%, this again according to UFC.com, 70% percentage total of strikes avoided, Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, he doesn't get hit very often.
In comparison to Conor McGregor, his avoidance of strikes is 57%. Now, granted, Conor stands and trades a lot more than Khabib would. But is that a surprising stat? Is that something that, you brought it up in some ways that the shots with Johnson didn't land? So are people discrediting his striking defense as in not getting hit? Yes, it mightn't be a lovely, Mayweather roll or hide behind, but his stats say he doesn't get hit. Yeah. But as you said, is that just because he hasn't fought someone with the striking of Conor McGregor?
I don't think he has. I don't think he's fought anybody who can really strike going backwards. And Brendan done a great breakdown. I think it was like a year ago on Conor, the way he strikes going backwards, the way. And again, in Dan Hardy's one this week, you need to watch that because he goes into how he caught Eddie Alvarez and his use of range in that. That was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. That's the best version of Conor McGregor we've ever seen.
Yeah, the way he showed it was the way he almost faked out his range. So he threw like I think it was a left hand while out of range, and then threw it with like a sloppy little jab. But then in the next combination, he just shifts himself a little bit forward with his feet, and then he gains like 12 inches of range or 10 inches of range. So stuff like that. But I don't think that Khabib has fought anybody who has the ability to drop back and land a shot as Khabib comes in. I don't think he's really fought that many guys like that. Most of the really good strikers he's fought, and plenty of people have brought this up, like the Edson Barboza, who's can't really strike going backwards because his best shots are kicks, and that pressure gave him fits. But then I also think, as I said, if Conor can't land that, and even if he does land that great shot, like Khabib hasn't shown a bad chin, he's shown a really, really good chin. So even if Conor does land that shot and Khabib keeps coming forward, you can't see a Nate Diaz looking fight.
That's the big thing about this fight, isn't it? It's how does Conor react to the takedown, but it's also how does Khabib act if he gets hit.
Yeah.
I think that, and we'll find that out on Saturday. No, we'll find that out, I think, pretty early in the fight. If Khabib manages, as he does to all his opponents, and somebody said to me, he gets them down, but he doesn't do much with them. And you're there going, you mean he beats the shit out of them for like 25 or 15 minutes?
Yeah.
So that's one strong point that Khabib has here. And do you think that's going to be his game plan? As in, a lot of people think if Conor McGregor's going to win, it's going to be by knockout in that line. But with Khabib, they think he's going to drag him into the deep waters and absolutely drown him there. And he could potentially go 25 minutes. A lot of people think that Conor will quit under the pressure that Khabib gets him. Is that the path to victory here for Khabib Nurmagomedov, to get it to the ground, do what he does best, and basically knock the will out of Conor McGregor?
Here's an interesting thing I was thinking about. When's the last time you've seen somebody fight Conor and impose their game plan on him?
I suppose in some ways it's Nate Diaz.
Which one? The second fight? First fight?
In some ways, both of them. I just think the second one, McGregor dealt with it better.
Yeah.
McGregor knew, I can beat the shit out of you with every shot. You're going to keep coming towards me, and he sort of brought that into his brawl.
Yeah, but even
at the same time, that's sort of a fight that Conor wanted. So it's not like
the second fight. I thought he made some great adjustments, and again back to the inside the octagon with Dan Hardy.
His leg kicks were huge in the second.
Yeah,
fight.
and the way he was stepping into range and not overextending on his left hand was beautiful. I think that was more of Conor's game plan. I thought that Diaz came in with the exact same game plan, but Conor fought to that. But I can't remember the last time somebody came in and really put a game plan on Conor where Conor had to try figure it out mid-fight. You know what I mean? Mayweather. But that's different. So I think what's fascinating about this is that Khabib, we know what Khabib wants to do in every fight. We just know what it is, and we know what Conor wants to do. And at this level, with these fighters who are incredibly talented and just unusually good at MMA, they can come in and do what they want to do, even though the other guy knows what they want to do. They find a way to implement that game plan.
What do you think of the argument that Khabib hasn't fought anybody?
I get it, and it is true. Conor's fought the better guys. I think that's indisputable. But I do think that if you look at, say, top 6 in the lightweight division, I don't think there's much difference between those 6 guys, really, in terms of skill and talent. Just because, some journalist from ABC.com that's actually a real thing. Or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Someone's gonna shit all over ABC.
XYZ.com.
Yeah. That has to be
voted that Khabib is, or that somebody is 6, not 4.
Yeah.
I don't think that really makes a difference. I think the top 6 guys in there, top 7 guys, are probably all fairly closely talented.
In fairness, claiming his title, Khabib had about 17 different opponents and eventually settled on Ali Quinta. And Ali Quinta, he done something that I want to bring up now. We start talking about how Conor come in the fight. He done something where he sat low to sort of get ready for the takedown, to block the takedown. And Ali Quinta is a tough veteran of the game as well, tough fighter, and it was a hard fight for Khabib to take on short notice and win. He won it well, he dominated. But some of that I think falls away. Well, you can look at Michael Johnson. I've criticised Johnson in the past, but like you look at RDA, what he done to RDA, do you know what I mean? Like, so Conor has fought the better guys, I think, but you can only beat what's in front of you.
Exactly, yeah.
And Khabib Nurmagomedov was fighting fucking Russians and got a lot of his
records as well. You'd have to imagine that back in the day when Khabib was coming up, a lot of people probably didn't want to fight him, because he's just a nightmare of a style. Whereas people saw Conor as a lot of people saw Conor as this overrated guy who's coming in with a mouth, who has a lot of popularity. I can go in there, I can wrestle him and beat him. Yeah. So he had a lot more people asking for that fight.
Do you expect, because again, people shit on Conor's jiu-jitsu. Conor is a brown belt under John Kavanagh. John Kavanagh doesn't give out belts just because, hey, you're with me, X-Men. He gives them out because they're earned, right? So a lot of people shit on his jiu-jitsu because Nate Diaz choked him out. But Conor was I was on the verge of TKO there. Yeah. When we did see him grapple, we seen him grapple against Max Holloway with a blown fucking knee, and his grappling looked incredible. His grappling, there was a great, I can't remember who done it. Somebody done a great breakdown of Conor. I know Brendan done one, but I was watching it on like UFC as well, where they done his grappling against Eddie Alvarez. The little things he was doing, like the ankle pick up against the cage and stuff like that, so Eddie couldn't get the sweep and stuff. Do we think that Conor's ability to get back to his feet is going to be a big part in stopping Khabib here?
Yeah,
he's going to get taken down.
He's going to get taken, unless like something like the Jose Aldo fight happens, like that quick finish. He's going to get taken down, and then it's all about, can he get back to his feet, which I think he can, because Khabib, he'll get some takedowns, people get back to their feet, but as you said, it's that chain of the wrestling, it's the aggression.
And he just resets and does his little jog and comes back up and goes back to work.
Exactly, yeah. So I do think he can get up, and as well, another thing that was brought up quite a bit when you're talking about Conor's grappling was the X-guard sweep against Nate Diaz as well, which is like high level. You're not going to see that. It's somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. But like, I don't really think that if it gets to the floor, you're going to see Conor trying to work off his back, trying to land something. He might try, if it gets in the guard, he might try elbows,
like he did against
which would be smart. But you can't see him like looking for triangles or anything like that. I think it's all about getting back to your feet. And it's just, I think the game plan would be just fascinating. What's the game plan on both sides?
So that's what we think of Khabib's going to get it done by getting into the ground, dragging Conor into the deep waters, making him uncomfortable, making hell for him, and getting the feet.
And then even on the feet as well, because once Conor gets tired, you've seen it against Nate Diaz. Yeah, he got tired and he was moving away. And Khabib has some good shots. He does have some good shots.
Is that what we think it is? Going to be high pressure for Khabib to try and burn the energy tank. That's where he might see the weakness in Conor McGregor.
That's what I'd say. Yeah.
Okay, let's flip it. How does Conor McGregor win the fight?
I think it's in those little moments where Khabib is trying to get the takedowns, where he has an opportunity to land. And as we were saying, I don't think Khabib has fought somebody with the hands like that. So I'll be very interested to see if Conor can look at what Ali Quinta done. Not the same thing, because you can't just stand there with your hands down and get jabbed. Yeah. And if Conor does that, and because Conor's like a great striker, he's still going to get jabbed out if he stands there with his hands down in front of him, trying to stop takedowns. But he's never done that against anybody. He's fought some good wrestlers, not anybody to the level of Khabib, not even Chad Mendes. But I think it's going to be landing in those situations where Khabib is looking for the takedowns, and he can do it. Yeah, Khabib comes in and he throws shots with his chin is there. He hasn't been caught, and usually when he's on the outside, he's fairly defensively sound. But like, that shot is there. You can see him.
Open, yeah.
He's definitely open for a shot. Yeah. But as we said, his chin looks like it's solid.
I think slow is the wrong word, but he leaves openings that somebody as elite as Conor will exploit. Yeah. And like, I think what Conor holds more than any opponent that Khabib has fought previously is power in short range. almost like Kill Bill, getting out of the coffin with a little punch.
Little
Like
1-inch punch.
He only needs that brief moment when Khabib enters to look for a takedown. He only needs that like I said, an example is the Marcus Brimage uppercut. Like if he catches Khabib with that,
those little ones,
they're the little shots, that short range. I think it's huge, especially I can see Conor doing. It's funny, I always refer to them as Travis Brown elbows, but I think
Conor done them first.
Yeah, I know. But if Khabib gets Conor up against the cage, I can see him coming down with these elbows. Looking at Conor as well, I know he has to cut weight, but he looks big in the arms.
Yeah.
Again, that could be for digging for underhooks to try and pull Khabib back up. As much as people question Conor's gas tank, and rightfully so, because there's evidence of it. You know, he fades in the middle rounds. But trying to get the takedown is exhausting as well. So if Conor is constantly fighting and getting underhooks and pulling Khabib back up and making Khabib work in the grapple and leaning on Khabib and letting him carry some of his mass as well, that can tire Khabib out. Grappling, it fills your arms. And I think Conor might be looking to exploit Khabib, get him tired, create them openings and even extend that little window for them shots. Yes, it will tire Conor. But yeah, I 100% think that McGregor's going to be looking for short range, distance shots, like coming in, catching him coming in.
Yeah, that's the big
Happy to step off. I don't think he'll put himself up against the cage. I think his footwork is what needed. His legs are going to have to be like eels.
Yeah.
As soon as Khabib gets a grip of him, get out of there. Not mess with that, but expect him every time that Khabib, if he does get a takedown, it's near locked, he's going to land nasty elbows and try slice Khabib open from either standing or from the bottom. It's vitally important as soon as he hits the mat that he doesn't let his back hit the canvas. He has to start shrimping and getting out of there straight away. I think he'll be doing that, rolling with the likes of Dylan Dennis, a legit black belt and BJJ champion. Kavanagh, they'll have been drilling it thoroughly. So I actually don't see, if you look at it as well, Peter Queally in the camp. Peter is like a grinding wrestler style as well. Again, not to the level of Khabib Nurmagomedov, but that's there. I think as well, footwork from the boxing could come into play, as silly as it sounds. You know what I mean? Like getting out of there, creating angles, not allowing a straight setup for Khabib. But I really do think the way to win this fight for Conor is in them short ranges, is catching Khabib, and as you illustrated and alluded to earlier, his power going backwards. There's nobody else that does it.
Plus, it's the momentum of the guy coming in, you know. And again, it's all kind of hypotheticals in this one, which is brilliant for looking at a fight. And it's the reason why this fight is so intriguing, is because we can say that Khabib has these defensive deficiencies coming forward because he's looking for takedowns, but nobody's been able to exploit it. So it's all like, it's all saying, can Conor do this? We've seen Conor do it against other guys, but these other guys aren't Khabib. But then when you look back, and I still look back at that Aldo one and think that people now are saying, oh, well, you know, of course. But like, nobody was picking that kind of finish. And Aldo just does not come in like that. We still have a whole fight week for, you know, the mind games that happen.
That's a big part. What do we think? What do we think about that?
I don't know.
You see different. I actually was watching that press. It was quite funny. Going up in an elevator with two Dagestanis.
Yeah, I know, you're telling me that. Yeah.
But mind games is because I think Khabib doesn't understand half of what he's saying.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, he definitely doesn't.
So it's just the aggression maybe of it.
Yeah.
But like, you know, your dad smells a shite. You know what I mean? Like, Khabib doesn't have a clue. What
he's like, what?
We think it's hilarious.
What is this?
But like,
yeah, I don't think it's going to get to Khabib. But if he can do, if Conor can do enough to get to Khabib to want to punch him, that's a good thing. And I don't think Khabib will get to Conor. Some people are saying, "Oh, look, Conor's invested because he's being crazy." Conor does this all the time.
Remember him down in Brazil ripping.
Yeah, it's that illusion. He tries to give the other guy the illusion that he's absolutely insane and he's coming in to try to take his head off.
I honestly think both him and Khabib will be the two coolest people in the arena.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they will be. I don't think it's going to be a mental thing.
I pose the question to you: if Khabib can't get the takedown, how does that affect him? If Conor lands a big left hand and Khabib keeps marching him forward, what does that change in McGregor's?
Do you know what? I don't think it changes a whole lot, because I think McGregor would have learned a lot from the Nate Diaz fight. Like, I was very, very impressed with when he came back for that second one, because the first one, he landed a few shots on Nate, and Nate wasn't moving, and he just continued to try land the shots. Second fight, if you go back, he dropped him, 3 times? 2 or 3 times? 2 at least, I remember the 2.
It was 3 times, I think.
3 times. and he was fine. He was grand, you know. And there was still those moments, and that's the big problem where he got tired. But it wasn't the same fight where by the end of the first round, McGregor was breathing heavily on his stool. He was more calculated, and I think he learned a lot from that one.
I know what you were saying with the and because I asked a question about if he hits me, he doesn't. But I think the actual other fight that gives a better example of that is Eddie Alvarez. He put Eddie Alvarez down a few times and just let him get back. He went down to follow up the ground. No, it's not done. Okay, back up.
Exactly. Yeah,
and
I think he learned a lot. That's one thing as well. I think both guys, but then just like if you're talking about McGregor and how he'd win, I think people are. I don't say underrate his intelligence in the fight game, because I think a lot of people give him a lot of credit for that. But like, if you go back and you watch the adjustments he made in the Nate Diaz fight, or even his comments after the Aldo fight and stuff, the way he was talking about like timing beats power and all this, and everyone said this guy is a thinker. Like he's not this brawler. He's a real thinker. And I think if you look at the way he's developed his style, it's actually quite unique, because what does he do? Like when he's striking, he's coming forward with his left hand. If you're like a southpaw, what do you generally want your opponent to do? To move towards your left hand. And the guys, he constantly allows them to move the opposite way. And we spoke about this before, where he overextends on that left and lands it. It's almost like the deception of range. And he's developed that. That's something that he's developed. He wants guys to move to his right, which is completely unique for a southpaw. It's not something that you see a lot. How many times have we seen big punchers, like say Roy Nelson, who was at one point, it was a top heavyweight, but how many times have you seen him chasing guys around trying to land this big right? How many times have you seen that? He couldn't develop that game. With like, there was a problem that had to be solved for McGregor, is that everybody knows I have this insane left hand. They're going to move to my right. That's going to happen. How do I fix that? How do I make that work? And then same with Khabib. They know I'm going to go for takedowns. I need takedowns to win fights. I need to pressure guys. How do I make that work? And they both made their styles work. So I'm very interested to see how they make their style work against this guy.
Do you know what my madness is about this fight? And this is mad to say this from either side, but I genuinely think either one of these guys can make the other look like they shouldn't be in the same cage as them.
I agree. Yeah.
Like, Khabib can absolutely destroy Conor McGregor with wrestling. It could happen. And that's not underestimating or putting Conor's grappling down, or, you know, it's not shitting on McGregor.
Khabib is just that good.
It's just Khabib is that fucking good at it.
You look at the way he mauls people.
Yeah.
He
and
absolutely
then,
mauls people.
turn of the coin, McGregor could absolutely destroy Khabib, pick him apart, drop him, and finish him with ground and pound.
Yeah.
And people be going, holy shit. And that's not the shit on Khabib's defense. But I honestly think we could be talking about either scenario on Monday next week.
Yeah.
Tuesday airs. But I honestly do. And that's what, for me, is like what's so intriguing about this fight is the difference in styles.
Yeah.
The difference in how both fighters approach their mentality going into a fight, how they build a fight, how they approach the fights. Everything is, they're polar opposites of each other, but yet they're going to stand across from each other on Saturday night. And I just think either could happen. But Rob, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Pick.
What happens?
I said this all the way leading up, and I haven't changed my pick. I'm picking Khabib. I think Khabib wins the fight. The more and more fight week goes on,
tricolour is not going in your coffin.
Yeah, the more and more the fight week goes on, and it could be because like I'm surrounded by everyone who's saying, "Oh, Conor's going to win." Because in Ireland, that's what people are going to say, and for obvious reasons, like especially casual fans. So I feel myself leaning towards Conor, and that's probably why. It's probably because of that, and it's also because of the breakdown that Dan Hardy done. I've seen a lot of very smart people who cover the sport pick Conor now, and a lot of fighters like Uriah Faber come out pick Conor. A lot of good people. But I just can't get past those little moments when Nate Diaz had Conor running backwards. And I think if that gets to that situation, which it might not get to that situation. But if it gets there.
What about the layoff he had?
Conor's layoff?
Yeah, that's going to be good for his body, though.
Good for his body,
not
yeah.
getting tired.
Yeah, and he admitted as well that that's a problem. So if you come out on live television, I'm pretty sure he said it at the press conference for May Mac. Yeah. He said it at the Diaz fight, didn't he? Come out and said it a couple of times and said, I clearly have a problem with my cardio at certain points. It seems like I slow down, then I get my second wind. Yeah. So I'm sure he's trying to address that. But can he address it enough to deal with somebody who has that constant pressure? I don't think so, but I could be completely wrong. It's to me, it's a coin flip. And also, Conor's a big underdog. And like in terms of like a fight at this stake, I think he's like a 2-1 underdog or something like that. So it's probably worth putting some money on him. There's actually some really good underdogs on this card. But I just see that happen. I just see Khabib hasn't shown any weakness in his chin.
25 minutes.
No, I think it'd be like a finish by like strikes in the third round or something like that. Just like, I don't know if it's gonna be a mauling, but I think it'd be one of them ones where he'll just be able to land a few strikes for the fight to be stopped.
Before we came on here, I just watched the Mac Life interview with Conor McGregor, and I said to you when it was ending, I said, you just don't doubt him, do you? Like the way he's speaking, you just don't doubt him. And like, I know I'm gonna get, oh, you're Irish and you're picking him. Like I said, when Khabib beat Barboza, when best lightweight in the planet, said nobody beats him. And for me, it is 100%. I'm 100%. I try and be as unbiased as I possibly can in this show. Yeah, but it's like me if I was on a football podcast. I'm going to talk about it as much as they're terrible. But I'm going to talk about Man United and whatever. Yeah, I'm a Manchester United fan. I'm a Conor McGregor fan. I like watching Conor McGregor fight. And I just think he's a special athlete.
I agree with that.
I really do. And I just think this is a fight that Conor has taken personal. I don't think that's going to affect him when he gets in there. Watch the interview after you've listened to this with Conor and Andrew McGatton if you haven't watched it already, and tell me you don't believe what he says. Yeah, I see Conor McGregor hurting Khabib in the first round, but finishing him in the second.
All right.
I can see him being his shot selection. I can see him getting taken down, but I can see him getting back up. And almost that moment where against Chad Mendes, he looked at him and was like,
yeah, this is it, yeah.
Now you're done. And I can see him hurting Khabib. I can see him mixing up his strikes, and I can see him hurting him, but getting him out of there in the second round. And TKO, referee, pushing him off him. Conor McGregor.
I could see it. Did you ever see like those real special fighters?
I got to roll it back, Rob. I got to roll it back. I can also see what you say happening.
Yeah. Like, I think both sides are completely viable. Like, I could be sitting there on Saturday night after the fight ends and go, damn it. Like, I could see that happening. You know, it's like one of them where I could see that happening. And there is certain guys, and I think Khabib has it a little bit. Probably not quite just yet because he hasn't really done what Conor has done so far in his career. But there's those fighters who, when they say something, you believe it. And it's almost... They're almost like the protagonist in a movie. Like, you can't see them losing. Do you ever get that? Like, it's like they're the star of the show. You can't see them losing. And Conor has that a little bit.
Yeah, he does. And it's in fairness, I say Conor's a special athlete, and I think the same of Khabib. Yeah. Khabib is a special athlete. But I just think, every fight stands on his feet. That terrible old analogy, but it's true. And I can see Conor hurting Khabib. I can see him taking advantage of them small openings, and I just think nobody hits like Conor McGregor in that weight class.
Yeah, I'd be very, very interested to see if Conor does land a shot, how Khabib reacts and how well he takes it. Because I think if Conor is to land a good shot, it's going to be, the shot where Khabib doesn't see it. So that could be the one that finishes him. But if he takes that type of shot well, I think Conor could be in trouble. But if he does wobble Khabib on something like that, because I think that's like a real possibility. Like, I really do. I think it's a real possibility.
What a fight. We got to look out. We got to run through because time is the essence here. So your co-main event: Tony Ferguson, Anthony Pettis. This is a real one of a question of what ifs, as in what if or what how or how is Tony Ferguson after tripping up over a wire, kicking a metal pole? How is he coming back into this fight?
It's a really interesting one. One thing I was thinking about coming into this one was that I hope for Tony Ferguson's sake and for his team's sake and his fans' sake that it's not Tony Ferguson coming back because this is an ideal time to come back, because it is. This is a perfect time for Tony Ferguson to come back. He's on the card with Khabib and Conor. He can call out the winner after his fight. Obviously, he's not going to know who the winner is, but he can call out whoever it's going to be. And he's back in the mix because you also have a few fights coming down the road with Poirier and Nate, if that's not going to be for 165, they're going to throw their hat into the ring as well. So I think it's a good time for him to come back, but I just hope for his sake he's not doing it because of that, and he's not fully recovered. I think this is, on both sides, I've said this a few times, that I think it's a fight that both of them will love, because Anthony Pettis wants somebody who will strike with him, and Tony Ferguson will, because he's crazy.
Isn't it a weird one? Because I remember me and you were talking on a live chat when I was doing one of the live chats, And everybody just thought Tony Ferguson's going to absolutely run through Anthony Pettis. And we were almost going, no, hold on.
Yeah, wait for it.
Yeah, you got to, hold on. Like, let's see here. Like, he's fought. When he lost to Dustin Poirier, well, you look what Dustin Poirier is doing. Dustin Poirier is a legit contender. And probably a 165 potential champion. But, like, for me, the big question is exactly what you said. Is Tony Ferguson rushing back too quick? Tony Ferguson, his style of fighting, he gets caught. He gets brought into wars as well. He's on a fantastic win streak, 10-fight win streak. The last
aside from the polar and
the last time we seen him in real trouble was probably against Lando Venata that time, and that's the underestimated Lando Venata. Is he underestimated Anthony?
A very creative striker.
Anthony Showtime Pettis could be swinging with me here. I said it on the thing. I don't, and I'm not saying it because I don't think I'm overlooking Anthony Pettis, but I do just think Ferguson is the better fighter. He's so close to where he wants to be, and I just think there's no way he's going to lose it this close to. He knows the very next fight after him is McGregor Khabib. He wants either one of them, and Anthony Pettis, as much as he can. Great strike and won his last fight with a choke, triangle choke. Like he has the finishes, but he's win lose his last few fights. I just think momentum is a big thing. But for me, it 100% comes down to how quick Ferguson has turned around. But I am going to pick Ferguson for the win.
Yeah, I'm picking Ferguson as well. But you also have to look back at, say, the Barbosa fight where Barbosa was chewing him up with body kicks. Yeah. Anthony Pettis will absolutely love that prospect. Lando Venata, who's a creative striker like Pettis, who can land some good shots and wobble Tony Ferguson a few times. And Lando Venata, creative striker, but he hasn't really shown to be the finisher that Pettis is. So if Pettis gets Tony Ferguson in a little bit of trouble, I think that could be a problem for Tony Ferguson. Again, a few fights ago we were talking about Anthony Pettis. Is he done? Is he done in this top 10? But he's on his way back. I think it's a great fight for Pettis. I'm picking Ferguson. But man, Pettis is a big underdog going into this, and I'll be putting some money on him. 100% putting some money on him. But yeah, official pick. I gotta go with Tony Ferguson.
Oven St. Peru versus Dominic Reyes.
This is an interesting one. OSP is the gatekeeper of that division, I think, at this point. Probably unfortunately for him. Put up a good fight against Jon Jones. Dominic Reyes, a lot of people are talking about him coming into this as a real prospect, and I definitely see it. He's a really tall guy. I think he has a 3-inch reach disadvantage against OSP, even though he's a taller guy. But that's okay for him because he likes to actually fight on the inside. He does most of his best work on the inside. If you look at his last one, it was a beautiful little short uppercut counter, which was just brilliant. But he does still do some things, especially in that last one. I rewatched his fight with Jared Cannonier, and he does a few things where I think OSP can capitalise. Like he went for the single leg takedown, and his head was just there for a choke. And you know the way OSP loves his chokes. And his head was also there for elbows and shots. And that's what Cannonier went for. So I'm going to go with OSP just on veteran savviness. Yeah. But I could see him getting finished because Reyes is definitely a big prospect. I think he's 9-0 at this point. And I know a lot of people are talking about him. And I'm very interested to see how he can progress. And it would not surprise me if he won. And he's an underdog. So again, it could be, I think he's actually a big favourite, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, if you go check Paddy Power.
I find Oven St. Peru, sometimes he just doesn't show up. Yeah. Sometimes he looks like, somebody's woke him up and put him in the cage. And then other times he looks fucking great. So me, I'm on the weird one here. I'm thinking veteran here. But, as we said, the whole gatekeeper thing,
OSP is 15-8. So he's like 2-1 basically, and Reyes is only 4-11, which I get. He's on a great streak at the moment, and he's knocked out some good guys, and they've been devastating knockouts. His hands are really, really good, but he still does a few things that I don't like, where he throws like kicks and doesn't disguise them behind hands, and that's something that I think OSP can capitalise on. Would not surprise me if he comes out here and he absolutely wrecks OSP, because as you said, it doesn't really show up sometimes, but I don't know. I think just based on the odds as well, it's kind of saying I like the underdog here. I like OSP and the veteran, so I go OSP, but I'm not hugely confident. I'm not hugely confident in any of these fights.
Yeah, Derek Lewis get back in there after his fight of the year contender against Francis Ngannou. He's back in there taking on Alexander Volkov. I think the Black Beast will want to entertain the fans here.
Yeah, I think so too, because that last one was it was a shit show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you can say.
Shit show. But I think a big one here is House's back.
Yeah,
big thing with Derek Lewis.
You always have that question going in, don't you? And Volkov hasn't been anything but impressive in his UFC career.
6-fight win streak as well. He's Volkov. This is a very hard. I think in some ways this is a harder fight than Francis Ngannou.
I think so in ways as well. Like Volkov is very, very smart. He's a really, really crafty fighter. Beat Verdum in his last one, knocked him out. Beautiful finish. You know, he definitely has some problems.
Verdum was on steroids.
Yeah, and Verdum was on steroids. Yeah, although he will dispute that.
No, he's on steroids.
I'm gonna go with Volkov here. I think Volkov's a good pick here. I think Derek Lewis, if Derek Lewis can like land something and hits the floor and he can get his ground and pound going, get mount, because his mount is absolutely devastating. Yeah. He can do pretty well, but Volkov, he can fight well at range. I think that'll frustrate Lewis.
Big, yeah. That's my point here. He's like 6'7" or 8 or something.
Yeah.
He's like a fucking giraffe in the cage.
But he can also fight well in close as well. So I'm gonna go with Volkov. For me, Volkov wins. But again, another one I'm not hugely confident. This is a really good card of, it could be surprises. But I'll go with Volkov in this one.
We're ramping through them. We're just going to do to the main card, the main card, because Rob will be doing a live chat this week, I'm sure.
I hope so, yeah. Jason won't be on. Need to get another.
Maybe. There you go, folks. There's your invitation. Come on the show. Michelle Watterson takes on Felice Herrick, open up the main card. What fighter said it? Some fighter shit on women's MMA there during the week.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, sorry, women, you just aren't exciting. Who was that?
I don't know.
Can't remember who that was. I have to find that out. Anyway.
I don't know why you whispered it.
Yeah, because I don't
want the people to hear you.
I don't want people to say that I'm saying women's fighting is shit, because it's not. But it's just weird. Yeah, so the karate hottie coming in here, one fight. She won her last fight out. Taking on Felice Herrick is always a tough opponent. Coming off a loss, though, but always a tough opponent.
For this one, again, for me, this is a pick'em of sorts. I don't like Michelle Watterson at this weight. I think she's too small. Felice Herrick cuts quite a bit of weight to make this weight. And she's a decent grappler, Felice Herrick. But I do think that Michelle Watterson is a better grappler. I also think she's a better striker when she's on game. But it could be the size. The problem could be the size here. Felice Herrick is big and athletic. But I'm going to go for Michelle Watterson. I don't know. I don't like her at this weight, but I'm going to pick Michelle Watterson. I think she's good at range. I think her strike is really, really good. Her grappling, you can see her off her back, she's pretty good as well. So even if Herrick gets takedowns, I can see Watterson have some kind of success with sweeps and with submission attempts. But the size, I think, is a problem for Michelle Watterson. She really is an atomweight, is it? Atomweight. So but I'm gonna go with Michelle Watterson to win.
And the weird thing is, size wise, 5'3" against 5'4", so it's not. But yeah, I agree. And it's weird, like. I was saying about Owen St. Peru, sometimes he just doesn't turn up, and I sort of find that with Michelle Watterson a lot of the time when you're watching her. It's almost like she doesn't pull a trigger or something when she's fighting, and you're like, come on, do it. She was on the ESPN cover, wasn't she, to Sports Illustrated? So that's the course.
It's the course, yeah.
Felice Herrick, I'm going to pick as well in this one.
Isn't this one of these cards though that you could easily go 0-5 or 5-0?
Yeah, we could get them all right, and then we're not going because you picked different some of them. But yeah, you could easily go 5-5, and you could go 0-5. So crazy.
Good main card though.
Rob, we're not going to look further down the main card because our show gets edited backwards, as you will see sometimes. So we have a guest waiting in the wings, but an absolute cracking night of fights ahead. I cannot wait for this. It feels. I was really excited for the Till Woodley card, but I haven't been that excited for a UFC card in a while.
Yeah, that bombed, by the way. Did you see that?
Yeah.
130,000 or something, KV. Jesus Christ, it's bad.
Illegal streams, man.
Yeah, illegal streams, yeah.
100% it is. Just they need to,
I can't wait for this, though.
They need to look at their pricing plan better.
100%, yeah.
People are just...
not going to buy like something that's like 80 quid or whatever it is in the States.
For nothing.
Yeah.
Nah.
Great card, can't wait, but I think we should talk about some other MMA.
What else happened
news
this week? There was fights, there was stories, Bama, Bellator, it's all there. Let's move it along to your quick-fire news. So moving on with obviously Fight Talk, something that we normally start the show with, but we had to give huge detail, of course, to UFC 229. So we're going to wrap it up and finish it up this week with the obviously Fight Talk Quick-Fire news. A few things happened in the world this week, except away from UFC 229.
Yeah.
So let's talk about them.
Let's do it.
So this is where we have 2 minutes on the clock. Is it my clock or your clock?
Yeah, it's your clock, yeah.
God damn it. So we've 2 minutes on the clock, and we discuss the subjects. So, for example, I don't have to. We've really.
I'll do the first one. I'll do the first one.
Okay.
There was plenty of MMA fights last weekend, most notably Bellator 206 and RIZIN 13. What's your thoughts on the big winners from those two events?
Well, Rampage Jackson is clearly on a run for the heavyweight title. He's the new danger in the division. Look, I actually enjoyed that fight, Rampage and Vanderlei. Yes, it wasn't Rampage and Vanderlei from the early 90s.
Sure.
I described it as like two dads that were at a all-you-can-drink pool party that were just windmilling each other.
Yeah.
But I still thought it was a fun fight. Very different. Vanderlei was on the back foot constantly and running away from Rampage. And it just looked like the shots that Rampage were landing were more significant. He was hurting Vanderlei regularly. While Vanderlei did land, but it just didn't seem to affect Quentin Rampage.
Yeah, I thought it was entertaining. I actually watched it with Carl, old host from the show, and the first thing I noticed was that Vanderlei looked like a completely different guy than he did in the UFC, and I'm pretty sure even his last one. He just looked completely different. He looked old.
Have been in Mexico.
Yeah, he looked old. He looked like he was 40 odd, which he is. But to be honest, it was an entertaining fight. But the other fights in the card were some really good fights and really good performances as well.
Gegard absolutely fought beautifully at range, didn't he? And mixed up his attacks. And then when Rory went for the takedown to get it, he just sliced through him like a hot knife through butter. But do you know what it is? Rory's nose just isn't hold up. Anyone hits that target now, it's going to affect him breathing.
Don't be the guy that says, I knew this was going to happen beforehand. But I didn't expect. I actually picked Rory to win. I thought he would look better. I didn't think it would be this one-sided. I guess you thought Gegard would win it, but did you expect it to be that one-sided?
No, I didn't. As funny enough, when I always when Gegard fights, I go, it's Gegard. Yeah. Gegard's going to win. But he did. I'd nearly say that's the best version of Gegard Mousasi we've seen in a long time. I'm struggling to think of a better performance by him.
Yeah,
he made Rory McDonald look like he shouldn't be in the same cage as him.
Pretty much, yeah. And his ground control, which is funny because Brendan actually picked Rory to win by ground strikes, and it turned out the other way. That even the size difference, it was there, but it didn't look huge to me. It just looked like
it did to me.
It was I mean, huge. It wasn't like crazy. Bob Sapp also fought.
I'm gonna allow an extra 2 minutes because we only have 4 subjects, so an extra 2 minutes in this because there's a lot of fights. But yeah, I thought Gegard. What's next? He's due to fight
Lovato Jr.
Lovato Jr. Isn't he? So that's
a good fight.
That's a great fight. But Aaron Pico, before we move on, man, Aaron Pico, for a wrestler.
Yeah,
holy.
But he does have a passing striking. But Jesus Christ, like that guy is so talented. It's ridiculous. He's so talented. The way he goes to the body, like he had him hurt, and he only has 4 fights in MMA, or that was his 4th fight, wasn't it, or his 5th fight? 4th or 5th. Either one, doesn't really matter. And he had him hurt, and he pursued the finish, but he pursued it smart. He was going to the body, he was taking his time, in the clinch he wasn't going crazy. It was just a phenomenal performance by a guy who, remember we had Jimmy Smith on, and he was telling us about, this was before his 5th fight. Yeah, we had Jimmy Smith on, and before his first fight he was telling us that Bellator are all in on this guy. They're not going to give him cans, they're going to give him really tough guys to fight, and that was another proof of Aaron Pico's skill.
Bob Sapp, Rob.
Yeah, man, you haven't seen this fight?
No,
Go check it out.
I actually haven't watched RIZIN, and Darren Cruikshank, who I always enjoy watching.
Darren Cruikshank as well, beautiful performance from him.
Mirko fighting as well. Jeez, this is
Crow Cop won as well. Yeah. That was nasty. Firstly, Bob Sapp. Bob Sapp was in a fight. I can't remember his opponent's name, but 2 absolutely enormous guys.
Osunarashi.
That's the one. 2 enormous guys just beating the brakes off each other. At times it looked like Don Fry and Takayama. Not quite with the clinch work, but just wailing on each other, swinging at each other. And Sapp didn't tap out early, so that was interesting. Horiguchi fought. Who did Horiguchi fought? Tension or something?
Man, you gotta get Horiguchi back in the UFC though, haven't you?
Yeah, big time.
Big time.
Yeah. It was a mad card. Crow Cop won by cut. He threw this fucking nasty elbow, cut him open. And that was the win. But yeah, RIZIN was mad as well. There it is.
Great stuff. Next one. Sorry, I was off the page. The UFC are changing their anti-doping policy. You can take all the drugs you want now.
Sweet.
No, doping violations will now only be announced after the case is fully resolved. Is this a good change for the fighters? Common sense seems to have prevailed.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if in any other thing in life, like you're up for a crime and you're like, yeah, you're guilty.
Yeah.
Start serving time in prison there. You're done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'd be like, no, hold on.
Let's get this.
I didn't do that. No, be gone with you. into the hole, you know what I mean, or
Yeah.
whatever. It is quite weird that they announce it now. I can understand what they always say, a violation.
A violation, yeah.
But
a potential violation.
But in the MMA community, and we'd be one for it, be like, fuck's sake, take him. Fuck
Yeah, I
it,
know.
you're completely guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
In the
backwards.
MMA world. So yeah,
You said it, backwards cunts, as
yeah.
Conor would say.
So like this is good. It's good for change. You also having this brackets Sean O'Malley out of UFC 229.
Yeah, you've seen this, no?
No. This is new news.
Oh,
to me.
Jesus Christ.
Very busy man.
Very busy man. I was off today. Sean O'Malley basically came out and revealed that he failed because the new policy is that they won't announce that somebody
they
failed.
won't fight.
So he's not going to fight. So he said
Yeah.
that he failed. They're trying to get to the whatever he failed for. He said it's a tainted supplement, as everyone goes.
All right.
No, it can't be marijuana because remember they changed the thing where if
He's a
it's
prescription, does he?
no. Remember they changed the thing where you can only fail in competition for marijuana.
Yeah.
So it has to be like 24 hours before the fight. So it
Yeah.
can't be that. It has to be something else. Don't know what it is. I think it makes sense though.
God damn tainted supplements.
I think it makes sense that. So it's going to be funny actually. This comes last. We're recording this first, just so you know. This comes last, and we'll probably touch on this with Chuck Mindenhall.
Yeah.
So you're going to look act
Yeah,
surprised.
they're gonna be like, but no, just
Yeah.
spoke about that like 20 minutes ago. Yeah, I think darkness will fuck us over for consistency.
Yeah.
And,
Oh well. Not for the audio listeners.
Yeah, but yeah, it is 100% common sense. But it's going to be quite funny for this case. As
Exactly, yeah.
Why is Sean O'Malley off the card? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows, yeah.
Nobody
And he
knows.
says that's the weird one. Like, what's going to happen when they don't announce someone's out due to drugs? And there's like, yeah, he's out. Why? Can't tell you. Well, it's
tell
obviously drugs.
Dana White says we may see Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier again, but this time a weight class up. He told TMZ the hatred is real with these two men. It's unbelievable. I would like to see it. I think the fans would like to see it. What would be interesting is we might see it at heavyweight. So, do you reckon Brock Lesnar is not doing well in the USADA testing pool?
I don't know. I just think it's.
He has his armbands on, but he's not quite swimming in the pool again.
Yeah, no, I just think it's that Dana White wants Daniel Cormier to fight again afterwards.
Yeah.
Cormier is adamant that he's not going to fight after he's 40. Is that right?
Yeah.
He's
He's 2 fights left in his contract.
2 fights left. Potentially 2 fights left. So I'd like to see it, but I wonder if there wouldn't be as much of an appetite if Jon Jones didn't fail that second test, because it was fairly, 2 fights, 2 wins for Jon Jones. You really want to see the first one, or the third one. So, now that he's failed that one, Daniel Cormier almost has that little, well, you were on drugs for that one. Yeah. You might have been on drugs for the first one. Let's see what happens when you're not on drugs, You have that little gimmick to go with.
It's, yeah, fuck it, I'd watch it. I'd love to see Jon Jones back as much. I keep saying it. Just embrace the heel. Be the dickhead.
I've heard some people say that they think that a fight with Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier would suit Daniel Cormier better if it's at heavyweight. Do you agree with that one?
No, I think Jon Jones beats most heavyweights anyway. I do, I really do. Especially Jon Jones at, weightlifting Jon Jones.
Yeah. Jack's Jon Jones.
Yeah, like I think, I honestly do. I think he'd beat any of the heavyweights.
Probably.
Like the only way I could see him losing against the heavyweight is if he fought someone like Cain Velasquez or someone that, that style.
The only thing
took him down.
I think there's an argument to say that DC is better at heavyweight. I think we have plenty of evidence to at least argue that.
Is he 14-0 as a
Yeah,
heavyweight now?
he's never lost. He's never really looked in trouble at heavyweight. Whereas at light heavyweight, he has against a few people. Even the Gus fight was kind of close early on. So I think you can argue that DC is better.
Fuck by Rumble Johnson.
Yeah.
See the picture of Rumble Johnson hugging the weed, smelling the weed. Fantastic.
He's also jacked. It's insane.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just you pick things up, you put them back down again. You pick them up, you put them back down again. You just keep getting bigger and bigger.
That's the way it works.
That's exactly how it works. Bellator MMA continue to raid and pillage Bama's ranks with the appointment of former Bama CEO Dave Green as the head of Bellator Europe. Bama fighter and reality star Aaron Chalmers is currently in court with the UK promotion over his contractual status and tweeted his surprise. I have to scroll down on this, do I?
Yeah.
God damn it. Aaron Chalmers' tweet. So, the person who had me in court for 8 months is now in charge of Bellator Europe. But I can't fight because it's like I'm talking to quote Obama. But he's at Bellator.
Decent.
The fuck? What does this mean for Bahama?
That was actually pretty decent. Do the full tweet in that voice. Monkey. That's monkey dance.
I was voting in
Do it again. Do it
So the
again.
person who has me in court for 8 months is in charge of Bellator Europe. But I can't fight because he still take me to court at Bama. But he's at Bellator. The fuck.
It's pretty good.
Apologies to all Geordies there.
I thought it was pretty good.
That was from years of watching Biker Grove.
Yeah.
So let's start this. Yeah, it is a weird one. Poor Aaron Chalmers, but I would imagine it might go away.
It might go away now.
There's a good chance it might go away with Dave Green. Dave Green, lovely bloke. I met Dave on a few occasions while working with Bama. Lovely bloke, but what does this mean for Bama?
Yeah.
Bama's just completely fucked.
I don't know. What's going on? Like
Because they've 5 dates booked, right? We haven't heard one fight announcement on the cards on the 9th of December or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
We haven't heard that. Now, I know they've signed some fighters, but...
They've lost their CEO.
Yeah.
They've lost their matchmaker.
Yeah, they've lost 90% of their Irish roster.
Comment below.
I'd love, actually, do you know what? There's an open invitation to anyone from Bama who wants to come on and speak openly to us about what the fuck is going on at Bama, because, you know, silence is deafening for me coming out of Bama. Now, maybe they have said something and I just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But like,
you're a busy guy.
They're a very busy, man. But they're 2 months, less than 2 months away from a show in the 3 Arena, and we haven't got as much as, you know, I think, well, I could be wrong. I think Blaine O'Driscoll was put down for a world title shot or something.
Was he?
I think. I could be wrong with that, so apologies if I am. But, great fight. Blaine O'Driscoll, great fighter, great potential.
But 3 Arena,
lovely fighter. But what else are they putting on the card?
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird one. And
it's strange. It's kind of sad, though, as well.
It is
sad.
Know, because they need to speak up, though. They need to say, look, this is what's going on or whatever, you know. And... It's weird because at first everyone thought, you know, Bellator are just going to put them out of business. But Bellator are signing all their fighters and all their, like, Jude and Dave Green now, you know what I mean? So
that's 2 big losses.
Are they fucked?
It looks like it.
It does, doesn't it? Looks like it. And then you look at Cage Warriors are going strength to strength at the moment, having big shows.
Yeah, Cage Warriors are like, for the ones that Baba don't, or for Bellator don't sign, Cage Warriors are signing. Yeah. So, like, it's...
And, like, I did hear, the one thing I'll say is I did hear... someone said it to me the other day that they heard that Bama was bankrupt. Now, I don't know. I'm only saying what I heard, so it's not me saying, no, Bama's bankrupt.
Yeah.
But it's...
all the tweets going
all the tweets. But it's just fucking... It's very strange. They look at them like they were having such big success. Yeah. They're having huge success. Do you know what it basically was, right? This is my analogy of what happened with Bama.
Satanta Sports.
No. Bama were going out with this girl, right? And it was a lovely relationship and things were going great. And one night they said, you know what? Let's have a threesome.
Okay.
Let's get your mate round. Have a threesome, right? So I had a threesome. It worked out well. Everyone had a good time. But then the 2 other people thought, I like you more. And said, let's just take everything they have. So they've taken your car. They've taken your CD collection. You know what I mean? They've even got the puppy. Do you know what I mean? That's what's happening. They've basically gone off. So, you know, you were doing well by yourself, but you had to have a threesome.
Who's the car in this scenario?
As in the big signing that they got. Jude Samuel is definitely the Rolls Royce that they took.
Yeah.
You know, matchmaker.
Yeah, that's good.
No, but like, it is sad.
It makes sense though.
But it is sad if Bama are folding because they were having hugely.
Remember a few years ago, like it was probably 2-3 years ago. Well, probably about 2 years ago when we kind of started the show.
Yeah.
Bama was just starting to come over
to Ireland.
Yeah, and they were starting to put on all the big shows, and we were praising them for what they were doing.
The last Bama,
Cage Warriors weren't around.
Yeah, Cage Warriors were sort of on a sabbatical.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
But when we first started covering it, we used to go into detail about the Bama cards. Yeah. We used to regularly have Bama guests on. And it's sad to see it. Like, if it is, like, again, we're probably jumping a little bit ahead here and presuming, but...
It doesn't look good from the outside.
Like, all they're short of doing is saying, you know, give us your fucking cage. Do you know what I mean?
That's the next headline.
Yeah, but
Bellator MMA sign Bama cage.
But I hope it's not the end because Bama have given a great platform for Irish fighters. They really
the more shows, the better as well.
Yeah, and they really have. They've had about 5-6 shows here in Ireland.
Yeah,
big shows, Rob.
Yeah, big shows. No,
sad.
Cool.
It is sad.
Hello, darkness.
No, it's a weird one, you know. You don't like because there's a lot of promotions down the years that you see and they just happen to fade away into the distance. But
Bama's always been around though.
But it's weird when you look at Bama because what are they on now? Are they on Bama 33 or something? Is it Bama 34 or something?
It seems like it should be more, doesn't it?
Yeah, but They've had big venues. See, I suppose them big venue are expensive.
Expensive, yeah.
Live broadcast, expensive.
Yeah, I wonder what their turnover is for those shows. You know? Yeah. Anyway,
No, it is
what
mad.
a show.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm just totally tailing off and disappointed there. But no, like, again, you know, what is one's demise is one's growth, and you're sort of seeing that maybe a little bit.
We'll see what Bellator does now in
hopefully.
Europe. It looks like they're at least got a push in Europe, so that's always a good thing as well. So we'll see.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
Episode 121.
121.
Lads.
Get ready.
I know I'm leaving this one on a dampener about Bama, but lads, UFC 229. Conor McGregor,
Man.
Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Man.
What a fight.
Let us know what your picks are.
It's
Comment below on YouTube or on the audio app that you use if it allows comments.
It's such a weird one. I may have said this earlier on in the show. There just isn't the same atmosphere leading up to any UFC when it's not Conor.
No, there's not.
It's
unique.
Before you all, you are so biased. There's not. And I don't give a fuck if you're American, Canadian, Australian, Japanese, or Irish. There's just no build up and madness like McGregor. It's going to ramp up this week as well. And, you know, who needs a comedy roast when you're going to have the fight on Saturday night? And man, I can't wait to watch some Lockhorns. Because it just, I don't know what's going to happen.
No. And nobody does.
But yeah.
Except for Jesus H. Christ.
Well,
as Conor McGregor would say.
Yeah.
Jesus H. Christ.
Jesus loves knockouts.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the fights on Saturday night. We are going to be back talking about the fights. What happened? Will there be meltdowns? Will there be madness? Will there be fallout from it? Will if somebody said something to get Conor riled up or to get Khabib riled up? It's all going to be ahead, and we'll be talking about it next week. And obviously, Fight Talk. Episode 122. But thanks a million again for Chuck Mindenhall for coming on and joining us. Thanks to Rob Palin for being here on a day off. He made his way into the office so we can record. Thanks to me for being here. Brendan Dorman, I hope you get better. And if Conor knocks out Khabib, I know I won't be talking to you next week, brother. But thanks for tuning in, and see you next week.
Cheers.
Peace.